Should be live on both sides.
Perfect.
Give me just one.
Welcome, guys. Just getting everything set up. We'll be going live here any second. Just waiting for the producer to give us the green light. Welcome, guys. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Just taking a second here, just pulling up all our live feeds. We're going live from quite a few different places right now, so just making sure that we're up and running. Also, real excited on some new gear. Bought some new gear for this coming hunting season for in the field. So we got new mics tonight. A lot of gear. So if you're listening and it doesn't sound good or something's not right, comment below and we'll definitely get it fixed and get it going for you.
Should be good.
Perfect. All right, guys, welcome. I am Nate. Exact time. It's on a little bit of education. I'm not saying that all of this stuff is open. Some of this is going to help you put an animal on the ground this coming fall. Got a lot of flashing lights going on here, Devin, on the camera. Hopefully everything is still good. Guys, again, just testing out some new equipment, so hopefully everything is coming to you live. Again, everything is about education to you, the hunter. So again, we're hoping that we can give you some new knowledge, again, to hopefully help you be more successful this coming fall. That's what it's all about. Knowledge of the resource is what puts animals on the ground. If you look at every great hunter out there, somebody that you look up to, everybody has unique skills. I mean, you have people that are amazingly physical, can hunt harder and further. You have people that are amazing at shooting. They can shoot and outshoot anybody. You have amazing calls. But really, at the end of the day, knowledge of the resource through scouting, learning the terrain, the water holes, the food, the bedding, learning the animal, their daily habits, and you put those two in connection and put it all together like we're going to do tonight. And more than likely, that will put more animals on the ground than those unique characteristics of being, again, a great shot or a great caller or an extreme athlete. Knowledge of the resource, again, is one of the things that's going to put animals in. Again, that's why you would hire a guide. You hire a guide to have that knowledge. You yourself, in a do-it-yourself style hunt, can do that. So again, it's just up to you. Find the time, put the energy in, build that knowledge. It's hopefully going to put animals on the ground to you. Now, I'm going to talk you through a couple of my personal situations where I'm at with animals, and we'll kind of move on to the topic tonight. But the big thing we want from you tonight is you, the listeners, everybody watching out there. Comment right now. Tonight's show is really about you guys. We want to hear your situation, where you're at in your scouting, where you at in your upcoming months. We break it down. If you're struggling, if you're not finding animals, you have a question about daily habits, whatever. I know there's questions out there. If you have questions, comment below. Again, we're going live from the Bowtech Facebook page, and a huge thanks to Bowtech for letting us go live on their platform. So again, we're coming live from the Bowtech Archery Facebook page, the Diamond Archery Facebook page, the Bowtech website, my personal page, which is Nate Zelinsky. If you don't like that, make sure you go on Facebook, give that a like in the Nate Zelinsky Facebook page, as well as Bass Pro Shops of Denver. So huge thanks to them for that, as well as Tightline Outdoors. So again, on any of these platforms, if you have questions, comment. Again, we want to hear your scenario, your situation. We want to answer them aloud tonight. So go ahead, comment. We'll take those questions here in just a little bit. We're also going to talk about calling a little bit tonight. I know a lot of people are antsy about that. They want to hear about calling. They want to hear about calls, when to use them. So we'll definitely cover that. And on top of all that, again, we're going to talk about my personal situation. So where I'm at, again, I'm hunting a lot of Colorado. Actually just got done doing some scouting actually in Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho. A buddy of mine went on a road trip here this last week, really getting set up for upcoming hunts, more 2018, 2019 hunts. Just making sure that we're in the right situation there. So spent a lot of time in a lot of the Rocky Mountain region. Saw a lot of pronghorns, saw some big elk, saw some big mule deer, saw some whitetails. So we saw a lot of different animals as we kind of did a quick scouting trip through Wyoming, Idaho, but saw a lot of animals. Hometown, where I'm doing a lot of hunting here, recently or coming up here, is Colorado. And Colorado's had a lot of change here in about the last 2 weeks. We're just getting absolutely bombarded with rain, so a lot of moisture. It's bad. It's great for the resource. Fire hazards are down. It's making everything quiet, which we love. Only big thing is changing up is it's really freshening up that grass. And a lot of times when we have that grass die off, it can really help that rut kick off. The second the grass starts to wilt, the grass starts to die, it's a kind of a clear-cut sign to those cows that, hey, breeding season's coming up. Again, it's not the number one sign, but it's just a helper. It definitely helps things out, kind of kick that rut off when you see some of that grass start to freshening up that grass. The big problem is it's adding a water holes, which we're going to talk about later. But a lot of rain, there's water everywhere. These animals are really getting enough rain, enough moisture just off the grass they're eating to not have to utilize a water hole. But on top of that, the water holes that are existing are everywhere. I mean, every little indention in the earth is having some sort of water, hold up on it right now. So it just changes things up a little bit. So we're going to talk about that in case you have that plan as a water hole hunter, how you're going to go about doing that. So that's kind of where I've been as far as my actual true hunts. Again, I have a buddy with a sheep tag right now. He's up hunting right now. A lot of moisture, a lot of lightning up in the high country. So kind of cutting some hunts short as we're dealing with a lot of lightning up in that sheep country. But everything should mellow out. Should be a cool week here in Colorado for that sheep hunt. I'll actually be getting out with him later this week, so I'll bring you some live footage from out in the field on a sheep hunt later this week. My closest tags that I'm going to be having here is my pronghorn tag. I have a pronghorn tag coming up next week. We'll actually, again, bring you live footage of that pronghorn hunt. Same thing. The water hole is almost out for me. There's a lot of water where I'm pronghorn hunting, and to be honest, they're still hitting it. They're still utilizing that water. It's still getting warm during the day. I have a hard time sitting still. You watch these live feeds, I'm wiggling around. If that's the only way to harvest animals, I'm great about sitting on water. And if there's multiple options to sneak up on these animals or get a good opportunity at these animals, oftentimes I do that. I love spot and stock. I love hunting decoys. So that's really my plan for antelope right now on that pronghorn hunt. We've been talking about it, but again, live decoys is probably going to be my greatest approach. That's where now, to where I'm borrowing. I'm not a horse guy. I'm not a livestock guy. I've actually located and talked to a bunch of ranchers in the area. They have everything out there that's to utilize. They have some donkeys. They have cattle. They have horses. A couple of them have yaks. A lot of these animals are super friendly. You can take a lead rope, put a lead rope on these animals. You can literally walk with these animals. Maybe have a couple sugar cubes in your pocket. But I'm actually planning on most of these pronghorn hunts to utilize livestock and just walk with the livestock. When doing this through scouting, number one, you got to make sure that you're used to the animal that you're walking. Number two, make sure that as you get time to shoot, that animal doesn't get nervous as you're kind of letting go of the animal, starting to move around. But these pronghorns have really let me get close while walking around with livestock. So that's my plan right now. To be totally honest with you, though, in a pronghorn situation, for me personally, I'm watching a bunch of different bucks. I have a lot of animals, a lot of mature animals, quite a few good shooter animals. And really, it's going to be the 48 hours before the season of the situation in which those animals are in that's going to determine that hunt. Obviously, if everything dries up and water's the ultimate technique, it's going to be great. But really, 48 hours from that hunt, I'm going to see where these animals are at. If they're in terrain that I can sneak up and really have a good opportunity of just spotting and stalking, I'm going to do that because that's my most entertaining way to hunt these animals. I love it. I love that challenge of just stalking up on them, getting within range, and taking that shot. So that's definitely a goal. I have options of using decoys that I carry. So basically big cow boards, pronghorn, decoys, things like that, to where hopefully set them up, have the animal either come to me or approach the animal using that decoy, which is a definite option and has been working. I also have options where I've tied up fences. So I've gone to some of these fields, got permission, and tied up that bottom piece of barbed wire just a couple inches, and these pronghorns are using that as a daily crossing. So I have that as an option, as well as the livestock. So I really have a handful and a bag of tricks for this upcoming hunt next week. And really, it's going to be that 48 hours and that 24 hours before the hunt where I see where the animals are at, the exact situation, the exact weather that's going to lend to my decision making on that opening morning, and how I'm going to make the approach that particular day and the animals I'm going to approach in the right situation. So again, stay tuned for that. We'll be talking to you and walking you through those live hunts next week on the 15th. So really excited about that. Other hunts that I'm planning for, I have a bear tag. Been seeing some absolute giant bears here in Colorado. Now in Colorado, we're not allowed to use bait. We're not allowed to use dogs. We're not allowed to have a spring season. So a fall spot and stock is really the only way to harvest these animals. So I have a September tag. Right now, these animals are really starting to hit the raspberry patches pretty hard, and then come acorn patches. So that's your key food source. So right now, I'm really looking heavy for the acorns, and I'm really looking heavy for the raspberries, particularly the raspberries early, and the acorns as we start going just a little bit later into the fall. And I'm actually still hunting water. So I'm finding water holes, but I'm trying to find water holes in some thicker timber. So water holes near the drainages where the raspberries are going to be growing, water holes near those acorn patches. And really, I'm hoping these animals are going to spend more time out during the day feeding, and hopefully in that sun is going to warm up, obviously, that big coat, and hopefully they're going to utilize water a little more frequently. Right now I have these bears using water fairly frequently on trail cameras, but most of it's been at night. I haven't seen that much daytime activity on the water holes, but hopefully as patterns lead that they have in the past, hopefully as it gets warm, these animals start utilizing those water holes, and we have that great opportunity there. So really excited about the bear hunt. Again, seeing some giant bears. Hopefully we can bring you that footage of some great bear hunts as these animals are going in and out of food areas to the water hole. So excited about that. Big bucks and big bull continue. I'm watching a lot of big mule deer, watching a lot of big elk, just getting ready to watch all of that unfold. To be totally honest with you, I have a lot of options. I have not selected a tag yet. Being a Colorado hunter, we have lots of options, and it's actually fairly nice. I'm doing a lot of scouting, watching a lot of animals. We haven't talked about this situation yet, but I personally utilize a lot of the over-the-counter tags. So in Colorado, especially a lot of people that are watching this, that, you know, if you're not from Colorado, we have a huge portion of our areas, our zones, our units in Colorado that are over-the-counter. You can literally go to a licensed agent, go to a Bass Pro Shops, and pick up a tag right before the hunt. And those tags are, again, they're not statewide, but we have units statewide, you know, bits and pieces that are that over-the-counter hunt. So it's easy to pick up those tags. In Colorado, we also have a lot of areas that are second and third rifle have opportunities to pick up a tag. Again, they're not limited. It's an over-the-counter tag. Anybody can purchase them. Again, you're only allowed one bull tag in Colorado, but there's a lot of options between archery and second and third rifle. And a lot of times I even take a rifle tag and I hunt with my bow during that. In Colorado, as long as you still wear orange, you can utilize primitive weaponry as far as a bow and arrow during that rifle season. So literally throughout my scouting, right now I'm leaning towards taking that bow tag because I have giant bulls located, everything's good, but I really wait until the last minute before I select my tag and I make my decision just through the scouting process to know what's the best option, in my opinion, to an animal on the ground. But with that said, my wife has archery, bull, and buck tag. Friends, family, we're going to be in the woods a lot with a lot of archery tags coming up here just in this next week. So a lot going on. We're definitely watching that. But again, big bucks and big bulls have been located. So that's my personal situation. I know that was long-winded, but we have a lot of stuff going on. So again, just kind of walk you through my personal situation every week as we'll kind of bring it to you. And again, we're weeks away. Next week, we're in the field actually hunting. And from that point on, every week we'll have this live feed on Monday evenings, as well as live footage from the field, videos from the field, and a lot of updates from the field. So everything is about to get very real very, very quickly. But again, tonight's show is about you, the hunter. So again, comment your situation, your scenario. Where are you at? Where are your struggles? Comment those struggles, and we're going to walk you through those individual areas and things like that. And we actually got a question here about water holes. So we're going to talk about that first, kind of above and beyond what we just did. And then after that, we're going to actually talk about calling. But again, bring us your situation. Don't be shy. Ask the questions. Talking water holes. It came up during the week. We've had a lot of private messages on our Facebook page and Instagram really talking about water holes and what are we going to do in the situation of water holes drying up, and what about the situation of having more water? In most of the rocky regions right now, we're having the situation of having more water than lack of water. So right now, more and ample water is going to be the problem. So everybody says, hey, we like that concept. If let's say we're a situation where our archery tag starts in late August, and we're not anticipating the rut until that second week of October. So we don't want to go out there and educate the animals. We don't want everything call shy. We know that we shouldn't be calling. So our other option is to either spot and stalk and hunt these animals, or hunt water. And in most cases, that hunting that water is a better option to put these animals on the ground. With that said, if you have ample amounts of water, how do we deal with that? That's really the question that we've been getting. And to answer that, you have a couple options. Number one, through scouting. Again, whether this is going to be you personally in the field with binocular spotting scope, really watching these animals, or if it's going to be through the use of trail cameras and setting trail cameras on water holes, you're really trying to hope that these animals still utilize one of your water sources more frequently than others. Now, generally speaking, we do get a lot of moisture in that late July, early August, hopefully by that second weekend of August, still before the hunts start, so hopefully end of next week, maybe the week after. Hopefully it starts to dry up and warm. September, most of these Rocky Mountain regions is going to be somewhat warm and dry. So we're really hoping it's going to dry up, number one, to eliminate some water holes, but number two, hopefully you start making these animals want to wallow on top of drinking. So our lake blood, cooling themselves off near that water on top of drinking, especially for the elk that'll roll around in it. So number one, we're hoping that they're going to start drinking just a little bit more frequently at one water hole opposed to another, and hopefully they'll start utilizing those for a wallowing situation on top of just drinking. So those are the number one thing. So I'm really scouting heavy through, again, being in the woods personally and watching them, and number two with trail cams, and I'm really hoping that I'm going to see somewhat of a more frequency at one water hole than the other. Now, when water's limited, when things are dry, when things are hot, we see a lot of animals utilizing one water hole. So you might have a bull or a buck or a bear that drinks out of the same water hole every day. In some situations, we see it twice a day. I mean, I had a couple trail cameras earlier when it was really hot where these animals were literally morning and afternoon, or morning and night, or night and early morning, you know, whatever. They were utilizing these water holes sometimes twice a day, if not once every day. Now that we have a lot of water holes, you know, some of my situations, I'm seeing these animals drink maybe one in every 3 days. And again, that's not a great pattern, but as long as it's somewhat consistent, you know, one every 3 days, one every 4 days, if they're hitting that one water hole more than others, that's going to be a pattern to sit on. And unfortunately, in a lot of situations, time is going to be the main pattern for this type situation. So when you have lots of water and the animals aren't as frequent, it boils down to what we talked about 5 weeks ago when hunting water. Time is what makes a water hole successful. And it's unfortunate that's that. If you're the person that has a hard time sitting down, sitting still, like myself, it can almost be painful sitting on a water hole. But the rule of thumb that we always follow, this was back in the days of when I used to guide. If you used to sit on water for 5 days straight, your odds of success were through the roof. I mean, I would almost get to the point where I would guarantee my hunters an animal if they sat sun up to sundown for 5 days straight. Now, that's not going to be an option for a lot of us because, you know, one just gets too physical demanding sitting there, you know, out of boredom or tired, or, you know, you need something to eat or drink. But even if you sat morning and afternoon or whatever the key times when your animals have been drinking in those times that you've been scouting, if you utilize the key times for 5 days straight, more than likely you will end up with the opportunity at which you're looking for, as long as you hunt that water hole with some education. Keep some distance off that water hole. Make sure you play the wind and your water and your setup is in the right direction of where these animals are coming from. Make sure that you have all your elements in line. But if you do hunt those situations for 5 days straight, 5 days hard, more than likely you will end up with that success. Now, what we see a lot of times happen, a lot of hunters tend to jump on that water hole as a break time. So they'll hunt hard for 1 or 2 days, their legs are tired, they're worn out, so they jump on that water hole for 1 day or 1 or 2 hunts. You know, they sit there, they get bored, then they go back out, spot and stock or calling. Then they come back to the water hole and they really hit it intermittently. And that's where it's going to get tough. If you sit on that water hole for 5 days straight, continuously, that's where the success comes in. So if your situation is having a hard time pinpointing these animals, or all of a sudden you now have more water holes, more areas to drink, that's where all of a sudden you're going to have to play the time. A lot of time on those water holes, whether it's a blind or a tree stand, you're really going to have to pay your dues, and patience is going to pay. Really a lot how you're going to harvest these animal holes whenever you have a lot of water. It's just the game. So again, if this water continues in the area that you're at, or if you start getting more water, plan on spending a lot of time on those water holes. It will pay off. Trust me. Have the faith. Just spend a lot of time and it's going to pay off. But again, other options for you are going to be that spot and stock until that rut starts. And once the rut finally starts, that's when calling and everything else will start to come into play. Utilize those type situations. So again, just kind of pay your dues, make sure everything is set. I know that right now, my wife has an early buck tag and an early bull tag. In that situation, we know that the rut's not quite happening for the elk that early. Great trails going in and out of zones for both the deer and so I'm really going to spend the first almost 2 weeks of the archery season here in Colorado with my wife hunting on those water holes. So right now my tree stands are hung, my ground blinds are put up. Me personally, with hunting with my wife, with 2 people, I love hunting out of the tree stand. Now I'm also a huge fan of ground blinds because I can make natural ground blinds. So I can put, you know, 4 ground blinds on every water hole in every direction to where I always have a good wind. I always have a good directional standpoint. But as far as comfort, spending a lot amount of time, I love sitting in a tree stand. I love the tree stand because I have a better point of view. Me personally, I get antsy in the blinds just for the fact that I want to look around. I'm constantly looking forward, looking to the side. Even though I have screens up, nothing can see me. I can do a lot of movement. I love being in that tree stand where I just have that little bit more of that 360-degree of view. I kind of always know what's happening. I'm not as protected from movement in the tree stand, but again, I love that idea of I have a hard time sitting still. Again, you watch me here, I'm moving around. The tree stand, at least I can see stuff. Kind of adds to my mind. At least I can kind of see. Helps me calm down. Opposed to being in the blind where I'm constantly worried that something's going to sneak up on me. So again, both options are great. I have everything in place right now. I actually am going to set a few more stands, and we'll probably bring you footage of that next week or so. I got a couple spots that animals are starting to show up on that they haven't quite been on patterns. Again, more water holes that are appearing that weren't there, a couple weeks ago. So I am going to throw up a couple additional stands so you definitely see it on there. But guys, again, that's the mainstay of water. Make sure you have lots of options. Make sure you know the direction the wind's coming in those options of hunting those water holes. And more importantly, plan on paying your dues in hunting those water holes. Have lots of options as far as directions, a lot of options for time. Pay your dues, and you're going to have success on those water holes. So keep that in mind. And again, bring us your situation. We had a lot of questions about water holes right there, so we're definitely going to talk about that. We did talk about that. If you have more questions about those water holes, make sure you bring that. Now, Devin, I know we had another question just come up here in a second. What do you got for questions here before we move on to call?
And you might have to repeat with the new mic.
Yep.
So with the abundance of water, we touched on it a little bit, with the abundance of watering holes, where else would you go?
Other than that, as far as options of, we have a lot of water holes. What other options are there other than water, especially in that early time of year? And it really is going to come down into a spot and stock or hunting the trails leading in and out of those bedding zones and in and out of those areas in which they're feeding. And to talk spot and stock, I mean, people a lot of times get a little fearful. They do it for mule deer. They have no problem doing it for deer. And then they get into an elk situation, and it seems everybody wants to call or they want to sit on water, and they necessarily don't have the confidence to spot and stalk a big bull or sneak up on a herd of elk and try to make that shot. It's a great way to do it. The biggest thing is go slow. A lot of times these animals can move around fast, but everybody gets too anxious. They get too, overwhelmed, and they try to push their luck. A lot of times they can ruin things. So again, in a spot and stock situation, slow down, make sure you know your surroundings, make sure you know how many animals you're trying to stock up on, and just keep an eye on everything and just move slow. And hopefully that's going to lead to you getting close enough to kind of make that shot. Now, we've got a couple questions on here asking about calling. We talked about it earlier, so we're going to jump right into calling. Now, we've had questions about this for literally 2 months straight about calling. We want to hear about calling. This is a sensitive subject for me because, to be totally honest, as an elk hunter, in my years of guiding, as I hunt now so much in the woods, I definitely utilize calling a lot, especially in that September timeframe around that rut. But I can't say that I'm necessarily the person always trying to call these animals in. So I'm going to kind of come at this with a different situation. If you watch any calling on YouTube, you watch it on these live feeds that's going on right now, you watch it on Facebook videos, whatever you're watching, TV, and when you hear about calling, everybody's talking about the diaphragms. They're talking about, how many, is it a single reed? Is it a double reed? They're talking about slits in their reeds. They're talking about all the different tones that you can get out of their reeds. And it gets very, very complicated. I'm going to take it back a notch. I'm going to take it back 10 notches. And I'm going to talk about the simplicity of calling. I'm going to talk about my mainstays of when I call, when I don't call. And I'm going to walk you through literally some of the basic calls. I mean, my calls in my hand right here are 10 years old. I am not on top of the times when it comes to calling. But I'll tell you what, big bulls, I don't have a problem putting them on the ground. So again, I want to talk to people that are out there. Sometimes if you're an advanced caller and you're listening to this, maybe think about some of the simple things. Take you back to where you were 10 years ago when you started calling. If you're brand new to calling, here's some tips. And again, don't get, fearful. Don't have that fear. I'm not a good caller. I'm not going to be able to work a bull. We're going to walk you through all those things right now. So number one, I break down the animal at which I'm hunting. So when I'm out there chasing an animal through scouting, I know the animals am I on. Am I hunting an average bull, a young bull? I don't want to say average, I want to say young. whatever the situation is. If I'm hunting a 2.5-year-old 4x4 bull, maybe he's a satellite bull, maybe he's in an area like Northwest Colorado that has so many animals, this young bull can have 3-4 cows, if my population allows that, or whatever the situation. If you're hunting that immature animal, that he's not a herd bull, he's not a giant bull, that's a bull that I'm going to try to call in. That's a bull that I know will leave his cows. That's a bull that I know is so excited, I have a great chance of calling bull in. That might be a younger bull that is not an established herd. That's an animal to me that I'm really going to call in. I'm going to suck that bull into 5 yards and have that close encounter. And that's a great experience. Now, on the other side of things, when I talk about knowing my animals, if I got a big bull, a big 365, a big 370 bull, he's got a harem. If I was on a ranch, if I was on private property, if I was in the ultimate situation, I would call to that bull. I'd have a diaphragm or a reed in my mouth doing soft tones. I would really be working on my calling as a hunter to try to pull that bull in, because hopefully I'm on a ranch where there's not a lot of calling. Hopefully the herd management, there's not that many cows through good management, and I'm in the ideal situation. Am I in that situation? No. I'm probably like most of the people watching this feed right now. I'm hunting national forest. I'm hunting public land. I'm parking in a parking lot with more than one vehicle. I'm in an average situation. I have an average tag. For me personally, everything I preach is that do-it-yourself average situation. National forest, public land. There's been times where if I call to a bull, they'll turn around and run sometimes because they've been so called to. It's the situation that I'm in. It's the situation that you've probably been in. So for me personally, immature bull, I am trying to pull that animal in, call it in, and hopefully put that animal on the ground. In a big bull situation, all I'm trying to do as a hunter is to make that animal talk. I want him to communicate to where I know where he's at. At very few times am I ever trying to pull that big animal in. More importantly, I'm either directing cows to where I want them to go, or I am communicating to get that animal to talk to where I know where he's at, sneak, talk, and take it away. That's how more than likely the real world is. The other situation we're talking about, more often than not, I'm by myself or I'm with a buddy, but very rarely do I bring a caller in the watch all these videos, and I'm the hunter. I'm standing here, and my caller's 50 yards back, calling for me. A lot of situations that works. For me personally, I'm by myself most of the time. If not, I might have a camera guy with me, but by no means do I have a caller with me, or do we do this big setup or this big breakdown to where I have people behind me and I'm trying to work a bull that way. More than likely, it's me holding the call. It's me doing all the calling. I'm working everything in one situation. So that's the situation that I'm in. So as far as my calls itself, again, I literally have got a Primos hyperlip. This is a single reed call. So I've got a hyperlip right here. I got a hyperlip with what they call a tone converter, just a way to quiet things down. And then I've got a Glen Berry, a Berry's Best sleazy cow. Very, very simple calls. Now, if an experienced elk hunter's watching this, he's like, I can't believe Nate's talking about these generic calls. You go to any shop, you buy them, they're $10. With some of the reeds, some of the diaphragms out there, you can get the most unbelievable sounds. You can be quiet. You can throw direction. It works great. But again, in so many situations, when I'm hunting that young bull, that 4.5-year-old bull and less, that 4x4, 5x5, 6x6, that satellite, the bull that's not big and dominant, I can be loud. I can cover more territory with my loud calls. I don't have to have this amazing sound, and that bull's still going to come into me. Then all of a sudden I get to this big bull here. All I'm trying to do to him is get him to talk back. I just want to have him make noise to where I can know where he's at. I can stay one step ahead of him. Maybe I pull some cows, pull some calves off of him. I move around a little bit. But again, all I'm trying to do is make noise to where that bull communicates to where I can walk up and have a good shot at that bull. Anytime that any of you public land hunters, any of your do-it-yourself type guys have tried to call to a big bull like this, oftentimes they call back, they scream back, they show aggression, but very rarely do they leave their cows and actually want to come into you. I know a lot of you are listening and saying, I've been there, I've heard that. It's the situation which it is. So all I'm trying to do is use some cow calls, make some noise, and have that bull come, or at least come to the outside of the herd, or possibly bugle back to where I know where he's at, and I can just sneak up and take the shot. People literally have a hard time getting the concept into your head that you can cow call, bugle, get a bull talking, and you can literally walk up and shoot them with archery equipment. I can't tell you how many times I've literally been calling, got the bull located, and physically just walked up to 20 yards and shot them. We all know how animals act in the rut. These animals get so fired up with breeding, a lot of times they make those simple mistakes. They're so paying attention to the cows, paying attention to other bulls, that they don't notice you quietly, calmly walking up and taking the shot. So most of these big animals that we harvest, these big bulls you see on the TV, oftentimes I've literally used cow calls and bugles to make noise, get them communicating, and up. If you're the guy that's heavy on the calls, you're an amazing caller, use the diaphragms, that's great, but don't get caught up into overusing them. You chasing some big bulls in the average situation, and again, I don't want to, you go to the ranch, you have a great herd management, or even a public land bull, and you get the right herd, these big bulls are callable. But the average situation, getting these animals to talk is more important, and walking up and shooting them is going to be better odds for you, the hunter. And those immature bulls, those bulls that don't have big harems, any type of these calls, as long as used in the right tones, is going to pull these animals in. So those are the type of things you're thinking about. Again, in most situations, less is more. I always start my calling day out, whether I'm hunting all day on hunt. Usually I start morning. Even if I'm not going to harvest my animal in the morning, I usually start in the morning to locate these animals, to try to get a good idea of where these animals are at, and then I'm going to pursue them throughout the course of the day. Most of my calling, especially my loud calling, aggressive calling, is going to be in the dark. It might be 15 minutes before light. It might be 4 hours before light. I'll go out there definitely in the dark, usually well before light, and that's what I'm calling to these animals. That's when the main breeding is happening. While that main breeding is happening, that's when these bulls are very vocal. That's when I can go out there with a real loud call, again, like this hyper lip with nothing on it. I can make some loud cow calls, and these animals are answering me 5 ridges over. And then I know where they're at. I can kind of plan my wind. I can take a nap, let it almost get light, and then I can start pursuing that animal. Whether I harvest it or put it to bed and hunt it in the afternoon, again, a lot of times these calls on big bulls is nothing more than a locator. So again, just loud. You get out there at first light. Everything I do is going to be somewhat whiny, but nothing crazy. Again, that's all I have to do. That little simple set right there will pull animals in, or they'll be googling from a long distance off. You have an idea of where they're at. The big thing to always remember when calling, when they're vocal, you can be vocal. When they tone it down, you have to tone it down. So again, simple. Here's a guy, bulls bugle back. Going, you can know where he's at, you can keep pursuing him, and you're going to have great odds at the end of the day. So many people, the bull starts bugling back, they get excited, he gets excited. A lot of times you get slightly too carried away. I get super excited, I start so much, and all of a sudden that bull, you overdo it because you got so excited. So again, don't let your excitement come through. Now, in certain situations, it can definitely work, but again, let the animal do most of the communicating. Again, the tone converter, just to quiet it down a little bit. As that animal gets closer, get a little more high pitch, but again, it's going to quiet it down just a little bit. And I can really, there's 3 holes there. You can almost cap those. Super, super simple. Now, the main reason I use these style calls, again, they're old school, they're old fashioned. They have a really long reed that I'm putting the top of my teeth on. The reason I use this style call is so I can throw a bunch of them together and I can imitate a herd. Now, I can say that over the years, of the hundreds and hundreds of bulls that I've called in, whether smaller bulls or the perfect situation on a bigger bull, usually speaking, I have more success when I am imitating multiple animals. This particular big bull right here totally fell for this. This bull was working in and out of a harem, a ton of animals. I was trying to get close. I kept getting really close, and I just needed to pull the animal outside of the herd. Again, I'm not trying to call him in. I'm right there. I have cows all around me. I just needed that bull to come to one side of the herd to give me the shot. And oftentimes imitating multiple cows, especially when you get really excited. So a lot of cows really excited, these bulls perk up. What's going on over there? Why is half of my harem talking so much? Why are they excited? So young bulls come running into this. Big bulls love it. But a lot of times, again, I'll throw 2 calls together. So I'm usually using just the canines on both sides of my teeth, and I'm blowing through 2 of them. I use the tone converter on one, there's an open hyper lip on the other. It's loud. Again, in that harem, that call's loud. Everybody gets, so quiet in these situations. I want to be loud. I want to be excited in this situation to, again, pull a bull to one side of the harem or to pull a young bull in from a distance. One cow always sounds decent. Multiple cows together sounds fantastic. And a lot of times I'll try to throw a third in there. This can get a little bit difficult, but literally 3 calls, microphone on the camera. It's loud in this situation. In the woods with good natural echoes, those 3 calls opens up a whole new world. Sounds very natural. About the same excitement level of 3-4 cows sitting together. That same volume that 3-4 cows would put off, and these animals get over the top excited about it. I can't tell you how many times I've worked a bull and not having luck. All of a sudden I throw that in there, and you get trampled by these animals as they're breaking out of the harem to come check it out. Again, they might not leave the harem, but they'll come to my side to present that shot, or those young bulls will just come screaming in. So simple things like that. Now the other thing I'll do, if I'm only going to work 1 call, a lot of times I'll do 1 call into a tube. Again, I'll do a lot of bugling with a diaphragm or a reed in my mouth, but simple things. I got to make a quick call instead of putting a diaphragm in my mouth, or I'm hiking around and my diaphragm slobbery. Literally a blue-tipped call by Primos. This is an original Terminator call. A lot of things have been updated since then. The blue reed is still around. I have 3 tubes tied together. So I have got a Carlton grunt tube, big open tube. I got an old Terminator that's going to be a Primos that's really tanked down, and then I have a real small grunt tube put in here. I love the option of changing it up. I want to be able to blow into one, pull this out, stick it into another one, stick it into another one, and have 3 different tones. So I have that big dominant bull coming through the grunt tube. I want to tone it down to real small, coming out of the neck down, or I want to be my most lightest call. I'm very intimidated. I'm a young bull into that real small grunt tube. But again, it's options. I have all 3 tied together, just duct taped together. Very, very simple. I also have a cow tied up here too, just in case. Hey, I drop something, I break something. I always want to have that emergency. I've been calling so much, I'm all slobbery. I have a spare cow call just tied on here just as an emergency backup. But if I'm going to be blowing 1 single call, a lot of times I'll blow it into my tube just to get those natural tones. So again, instead of right at you, throw it down, into that tube. So again, if I'm doing 1 call, more than likely it's always going to be into some sort of grunt tube. If I'm working 2-3 calls at one time out of my mouth, that's when I'm just going to hold it out. I'm looking for that over-the-top excitement. I'm looking for that over-the-top loud. I want to cover distance. I want to be natural. So those are the simple things right there. And again, you can use some diaphragms and get some unbelievable bugling. I go to a lot of these shows and they have the elk calling competitions. And these guys they sound unreal. But I can't tell you how many times in the woods I hear that bull that is just flawless. And then you have a lot of bulls that sound like they've been smoking their whole life and they have emphysema. I can't tell you how many bulls I've heard that I'm like, is that a hunter or is that an elk? And you're kind of listening, and all of a sudden he steps out and you're like, oh, that's a giant bull. Or bulls that, I've seen a lot of bulls that go from a cow call to a bugle. A couple of the bulls, I don't have a picture right here, but other big bulls I shot, that's all he would do. He would do a cow call, and if you got him really excited, he would kind of turn a cow call slightly into a bugle. And that was literally all that bull did. And he was hard to chase down because he would never full-on bugle. But it was neat to see. But again, simple blue reed. You want that excitement over the top. It's early in the morning. Let's say it's 2 a.m., and I'm listening down a huge drainage. I can get loud. I can get extremely excited. Now, a lot of the tones I'm doing are going to be right from my throat. Not doing a tone necessarily with the reed itself. A lot of these calls I'm just growling just with my own throat and mixing that in while I'm blowing that air through there to get the kind of those good tones. Again, you don't have to get over the top. Everybody makes amazing calls. For me, I'm getting a big bull to talk back to where I know where he's at, or I'm getting a young bull to come in. I'm not a good caller by any means. There is 90% of people watching will be a better caller than me, but it's about getting the job done. Again, I know which animals I'm talking to, and I know the kind of language I should be speaking, and that's really what it's going to boil down to you, the hunter. So again, you look at that big bull, instead of having the mindset, I got to call him in, all my mindset is keep him talking. Keep him talking. I'm going to walk up and shoot him. I'm hunting a younger bull. All I have to do is, again, be slightly less vocal than him to where I keep him interested, and that bull's going to come into me, thinking I'm in the right situation, and I'm going to get that shot that way. So again, younger bulls, I'm trying to pull right in to get that shot. Big bulls, I'm just trying to keep that communication line open, know where they're at, and I'm sneaking up. Again, less is more. I can't tell you how many hunters get out there, this bull's bugling, and they do that big, loud bugle I did. I do that in the dark. I love being loud, aggressive in the dark because all the bulls are going to answer me. Once it gets light, once I'm actually hunting, I'm always going to tone down. People get excited, and they get way too excited into freak out the bulls that you're hunting. They're like, man, that bull's too dominant. In the natural world, nobody wants to lose their cows. This bull's got cows. This bull's got cows. You always want to be the nerdy guy that's going to get his butt kicked. You always want to, through your calls, you want to make sure that you're like, hey, I'm nobody, and you want these other bulls to think, I could beat him up, and they're going to run in to try to steal your cows. When you start getting super loud, super grunty, throwing a lot of chuckles at the end of that call, that's when these other bulls are going to be like, whoa, do I really want to go over there? That thing sounds like a dragon. I'm going to lose that battle. I don't want to do that, and they back away. If you give those real light, the barely finishing, barely starting, crackling voice, you're going through puberty. That's the type bull that everybody else in the woods is going to try to fight. Your odds go up of calling that type bull in. Again, like we talked about earlier, going a cow call into a bugle. Another one of my absolute favorite calls out there. So cow call into a bugle. So when you're doing that bugle, you're squeaking it up high, and then you're really ending with a lot of rasp. Just that. So again, I'm just kind of throwing my throat into that call. But again, a cow call rolled into a bugle will absolutely get the job done in a lot of situations. Because again, you're that inferior animal. You're that animal that's not the big dominant dog on the block. So again, guys, that's my calling. Again, I'm a terrible caller. Don't ever, send me your questions. Hey, I'm using this reed. Should I, should I cut it? Should I really break it in? There's a million guys out there that are just phenomenal callers. I use it in the right situation. I know the animals in which I'm talking to. It all rolls down to scouting for me. So know the animals you're talking to. Know what you can get away with. Know which animals you can be dominant with, which animals you need to tone it down with. And again, the number one thing, if the animals are not talking, you should not be talking. When the animals are talking, always talk slightly less. Be that first date with these animals. Don't be the chatterbox. Don't be the guy too mouthy. When the bull's talking, talk back, but talk slightly less. And more than likely, that's going to help you put more animals on the ground. But guys, we're going to take a couple questions, and we're going to be out of time. We got a question. Now, guys, we got a new microphone. I don't know if you can hear Devin. I'll repeat the question as he asks them.
So with the fairly odd weather this year, do you think it's going to affect the normal migratory patterns, and how will it affect it?
So our question is migratory patterns. With unseasonable weather, whether you're super hot and dry or you're getting all this moisture, is it going to really affect seasonal patterns? Rain usually is not going to affect much. So the biggest thing it's going to affect is going to really put a lot of grass up. So generally speaking, Mother Nature knows best, in my opinion. Again, this is just my take on things. Everybody's got their idea of on the rut, but I mean, the cows have their cycle. I mean, they have to breed at a certain time because calves have to drop at a certain time. So really, it's going to happen within a couple week window. But as far as an early rut, an on-time rut or a late rut, when you have green grass, when you have natural growth, generally speaking, that's Mother Nature's way of saying, hey, the grass is green, keep feeding. Sudden the cow's going to say, hey, grass is dying off, it's time to start breeding. And that's when you're going to get that early rut. So early time, right now we have a lot of moisture, so I would say it's going to be a normal style rut, if not maybe just late, if anything, as long as our warm get cooler temperatures than normal, so we can get that grass to wilt that way. That will but earlier. As far as late season goes, if we get as much moisture as we're getting now, come November, that is definitely going to put more snowfall on the ground, and that's going to make that post rut, that November hunt, on time, if not early. So a lot of areas that have a huge migration where these animals move 50, 60, 70 miles, the second you start getting, right around that 20 inches to 2 feet of snow on the ground, that's when these animals are going to bail and migrate to their winter areas. So if the moisture right now is a sign of moisture to come, absolutely you're going to get heavy migration due to all that snowfall. So again, it's going to be one of those things that time will tell. But again, it's that 20 inches, 2 foot of snow where it's really going to push that migration, and those animals are going to move on in that type situation. So let's do one more question, and we'll call it a night.
We actually got two. You want to do two real quick?
We'll do two. Yeah.
All right. What do you not want to see on trail cams? Cougars, bears, anything, or does it matter?
As far as what I do not want to see on trail cams, number one, I want to see people. So, seeing other people traipsing around. If it's a hunter, I'm not as worried about it. When I see the average nature hiker that's got a dog walking with them, I hate to see that because you don't know where they're leaving scent. More importantly, most of the hiking takes place during the day, so a lot of times hikers will push animals out of their bed, so that's kind of a negative. Lions, I'm not as worried about. Lions tend to be somewhat stealthy. They're going to be able to sneak around through the woods with minimal impact. Bears, not as much. Bears are kind of clumsy. They're kind of blind. They're kind of stinky. I see a lot more bears moving elk and deer around far more than mountain lions do. So number one, I hate to see the hikers on there. Again, I'm not saying that hunters own the woods. Everybody's out there. But a lot of hikers are going to be pushing some bedding zones, so that's a negative. And again, bears tend to be a little clumsy. They tend to be moving around quite a bit. So mountain lions, I don't care about at all. Again, the people I'm not as great seeing in the woods. And same thing with the bears. So I'm not a huge fan. I wouldn't say that I would necessarily abandon that spot, but if you do see some change up in your patterns because of that, that's a good reason why. If you have an overabundance of bears, it would definitely be a thought to kind of have a backup plan in mind. So you guys want to take one more question?
All right. Sorry for some reason we're getting a little spotty connection here, so we apologize.
Yeah, sorry if we're having some rough connection. Again, new camera equipment tonight.
Bachelor groups separating. When will they start to do it, and how will that affect the
Absolutely.
future?
So when are these bachelor groups going to separate? Right now we have everything. We have pronghorns in groups, we have mule deer in groups, and we have elk in groups, especially bulls. We're asking when these bachelor groups are going to separate up. When is that going to happen? The elk and the pronghorn are going to happen first. So as the rut for both these animals takes place, usually the elk are going to break up first. I can tell you right now, I was watching a giant bull this week. We actually went live from the Nate Z Facebook page. Again, I broke my phone scope, so it was rough footage, but I was watching 3 bulls, one very, very dominant bull, just an absolute tank, and 2 bulls slightly less than that, but all 3 of these bulls were shooters and big bulls. And that giant bull was already starting to get irritated. He was starting to spar. He was starting to scratch his velvet a little bit. We're still about a week away from that happening, but these animals were already starting to get somewhat antsy. So I'm starting to see the bull bachelor groups right now somewhat start to break apart a little bit. They're still, they're going from big groups of 15 down to groups of 3s and 5s. And really, when these animals start losing their velvet is when you're going to see a direct separation of, and they're big bulls are going to start looking for cows, and that's really when you're going to see the whole thing start to fade. So it's really going to come with that velvet shed. So elk, within the next week. We always say as super early as August 10th, as late as, August 20th. But really, we always say that 14th, 16th, 17th is really when we see the major shed off of going from velvet to hardhorn. So really where I'm going to see that type situation of these bulls breaking out of their bachelor groups and going independent and forming basically their harems for the year. Same type thing with the deer. Right now I'm seeing a lot of deer in these big giant groups. We're definitely going to start to see them somewhat start to fade out over the next month, but really the second they start losing, really make a smaller groups or independent. Usually the big giant bucks are going to go independent, and those younger bucks will stay in larger groups, and it'll kind of format from that point on. I definitely have been seeing some of the bigger bucks start to have somewhat of a distance. So as you have a big bachelor group, they're hanging off to the side. They're still associated, but just hanging off just a little bit more to the side than some of these other animals have been. And again, over the next month, you're going to see those animals start to have a little more distance, and the second they lose that velvet, you're going to see more extreme distance. So hopefully that helped you out there, guys. Again, we're going to wrap it up. I know we're getting kind of out of time here. I have to take a quick step here and just say huge thanks to Bowtech Archery for letting us go live from all their platforms. You can be watching this from the Bowtech Instagram page, the Bowtech Facebook page, the Bowtech website, as well as the Diamond Facebook page, Nate Zelinsky Facebook page, Tightline Outdoors, and a huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops for going us live there. So again, we have questions coming in from all across the board. We kind of got to filter through them here. But a huge thanks to everybody for doing that, and again, for letting Bowtech let us go live from their live stream page. So a huge thanks to that. And guys, hopefully this is helpful. We're hoping that you're building education, you're doing your scouting. So as we go forth to the hunting season, you guys have more education and really the pieces to the puzzle to make you successful this fall and put an animal on the ground. We'll be going live every Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. here in the Rockies region, and so forth as you go down the time zone. So again, stay tuned. And this next week, we're going to have a lot of stuff from the field. One of the biggest steps you can take, text WATCH to 313131. So again, text WATCH to 313131, and we will see notifications when you can see notifications everything else happening as all our other pros go live as well. So if you want the updates, text WATCH to 313131. Guys, and I will see you next week as well as live from the field. Make sure you go give Nate Zelinsky Facebook page a like there. We'll be doing everything as far as my personal stuff off of that platform. Definitely follow us there, and we'll be having a lot of updates from the field. Guys, have a great night.